That was the scene in Dallas last week. It's now been 3 days since 5 officers were shot in the streets, and the Dallas police have been buried in support. There are signs of unity in Dallas this morning, but also still some unrest across the country. Over the weekend, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets all across the nation, from South Carolina to Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio, and D.C. An intense and sometimes violent protest, but in all, some 300 demonstrators were arrested. A prominent Black Lives Matter activist, DeRay McKesson, was among 125 people taken into custody Saturday night in Baton Rouge alone. And we thank you for joining us this morning on Eye Opener. I'm Layla Muhammad.
Hello, everybody. I'm Oliver Tull. And we have a lot more coming towards you on this whole situation. For example, this. The Next Generation Action Network is the political activist organization that organized what they hope to be a peaceful protest in downtown Dallas last Thursday evening.
So right now, the founder of Next Gen joins us live, Minister Dominique Alexander. Thanks so much for being here with us this morning on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Take us through the beginning. You know, police say the planning process involved not only your organization, but also the police department. So there was a plan in place. This was supposed to be, according to police, a very peaceful march, and in all intents and purposes, it seems like it was.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody know that when they say plan in place or whatever, there wasn't like we was meeting. It was literally this organized protest was organized in the front seat of my car driving to Baton Rouge and back. I hadn't went to sleep any time before that day and the day it happened, because the next day we was here and the next morning we was getting prepared for the protest. So it was never a orchestrated route. It was just when we got off the lawn of Below Garden, the police directed us this way and that way. The direction where the gunfire was shot is where the Dallas Police Department's guy that was inside of our crowd told us to go and directed us to go. The leaders, me, myself, or whatever, I told them to go to Frank Crowley jail. But I'm not saying this to do with tit for tat, but there was no route prior to us starting that protest or anything of that nature. It was only that we had, gave them our attentions and what we were out here to do. And we, made an agreement, and hey, that was it. And we just told them, hey, we will work with you and let you know, hey, what we this and that.
So you're saying this in response to the comments that, the shooter obviously knew the route of the march. You're saying there was no actual...
There was no route for him to know ahead of time.
There was no route for him to know at all.
Did you guys know the shooter? Was he part of the march?
There are people that have saw him before, but I personally have not saw him. And, from the comments of people that said, oh, he must have, he gotta know him. Well, it's over a couple of thousand people that come to the protest. They might know me, but that don't mean that I know them.
Absolutely.
I've never saw Michael Johnson or whatever, but I definitely feel for his family, because what we saw there was a failure of our U.S. Army. We saw Michael Johnson doing what our government trained him to do. We saw that's the sad thing about it is that in our country, they build them to be that vicious, and then when they come back into society, they never decompress them to go back to civilian. So there's a real issue when it comes to our veterans.
I think there are mental health issues in the country. I do think that our veterans have issues as well. My dad's a retired U.S. Command Sergeant Major. He's been to 2 wars. He's not out there shooting folks. So I can't agree with that comment right there. Bottom line is, there's no justification for going and killing 5 police officers as your reaction to not agreeing with how things are happening in the country.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so given that statement, what is your message? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say should be done?
Well, my thing about it is what should be done, and when I say about the Army and different things of that nature, I say this, that I'm not saying necessarily that all of the people that come through the military and different things of that nature, but what I'm saying is that the ones that have these mental health capacity and they know it on record, there is a failure. But when they're coming back in society,
I think we all know that part.
I have about 6 generations before me of U.S. Army, and they ain't out there doing that. But overall, for this message is that what Black Lives Matter stands for and what's the movement stand for at a whole. Black Lives Matter stands on the 400 years of this country, the racial oppression that has gone through this country since Nat Turner and from Martin Luther King and now to this day. Black Lives Matter do not come to alienate anybody or say that, oh, my life matter more than you. No, we are just trying to say in this moment that, hey, our lives matter too. In 2016, the sad part is that in 2016, we have to, after everything we've been through in this country, finally say Black Lives Matter. Yeah, of course, all lives matter, but that's not the case right now, because guess what? The racist and the bigotry and the hate, the white racist bigotry and hate that's in this country is not addressing that. If they come to us and say, hey, Black lives do matter, that's the case. That what defines whether all lives matter. But until then, we have a huge problem to address in this country.
All right, Minister Dominique Alexander, thank you so much for coming in this morning. I hope you get to stick around too.